Welcome back again to my third place podcast here on the newly formed My Third Place Network. I am your host, Evo, and this episode is going to be short, but something different. I don't see a lot of podcasts doing this, so I wanted to do something creative here. We are in June, obviously, and it's halfway through the year. I usually celebrate the podcast anniversary on the first day of January, like around the first week, you know? And I usually tell you what my goal is for the podcast for the foreseeable future. Let's change that up, you know? Let's do every 6 months. Every 6 months, I want to get on here and tell you the things that are going on. What's changing for us? What's coming up? What exactly are we doing? Because we all know, I don't know what I'm doing. We all know it, you know, it, eh, I've said this before. Why do we do this? And I don't even know why we do this. I don't even know exactly what we do here. I just know I love to talk. I press record and I just go on like I am right now. So for the next 6 months, consider this the roadmap for what's about to come, what's going to happen, and what's what. You know, I had no end game for this. I just decided to press record, press play, tell you what's going on because there's a lot of stuff in my head, and I just want to like put it out there. But let me start off by telling all the listeners from day one, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for supporting this right here, this movement. Because this is what this was. That's what this was, a movement. This podcast started off as me talking about what I love, and that was wrestling. It was named All Things Wrestling, as generic as it may have sounded. Oh my god, it was. I apologize for episodes 1 through 10, 15. I don't know. I don't know. Like a few episodes. I apologize, okay? It wasn't until a few episodes in that All Things Wrestling, decided, ooh, let me call it All Things Wrestling, blah, 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 blah. And then a few episodes with Michael, my co host, that I made the mistake of searching my own podcast and found out there were about a dozen, more than a dozen other podcasts called All Things Wrestling. Yeah, I I fucked up. I shit the bed, guys. That I'm allowed to say that. I shit the bed. Oh damn. So what am I to do? Continue until I was able to find a good replacement title, and we did that. We fucking shit. We did that. Enter Under the Apron. It started out as a segment. My co-host and I, Michael, we were doing some type of behind the scenes murder mystery dark side of the ring documentary style episode. There weren't going to be any murder mystery, although, but I I know there was going to be that one scissor incident between Sid and Arn, and it never happened until months later. So it just ended up being me doing it. But we had a plan going. We had a thing going. Um, 2 shows a week. One of them was Under the Apron. What happens under the apron style, behind the scenes style. The other one was weekly reviews of wrestling, 12 hours of wrestling, and I couldn't even keep up anymore. Um, and even then, it was like, oh, like real life took a turn. He needed to go and do this stuff. I needed to take a break. And in the middle, we took that break and we pivoted and we found a good replacement name basically during the whole um, Under the Apron thing because there was already from Under the Apron. But that was a problem. People kept referring to it as, oh, you mean Under the Apron? No. People couldn't find it because they kept thinking it was Under the Apron when we specifically told them from Under the Apron. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, you have to add the first word in there from. It's like, oh, okay. And usually when they did find it, they would ask me, is it the one with the green apron logo? And now, no shot at the restaurant business podcast that name we shared because I fucked up again. I shut the bed again, but that wasn't it. But the name of the title, the name sounded great at the time. From Under the Apron. Under the Apron is where you find ladders and chairs and tables in wrestling, right? So that was from Under the Apron. Even Hornswoggle lives down there. That was our saying. We were going with it. It shit the bed again. So when then came those that asked, "What does an apron have to do with wrestling?" And if you love wrestling like I do, if you know all about wrestling, if we talked about wrestling, you would know what an apron has to do with wrestling. But those that don't know, those that asked about my podcast, oh, what's your podcast about wrestling? Why is it called From Under the Apron then? What does apron have to do with a ring? It's the name of the ring. So non-wrestling casualists will get a hold of my podcast and be like, "Oh, is this your podcast? Oh, I didn't know you had a podcast." So then, you wouldn't be able to understand what I'm saying. If you, I'm so glad you know about my podcast, but unfortunately, if you're asking that question, then the podcast isn't for you. Sorry to say. I mean, there's an apron around the ring. The name of the ring is called the apron. Even on commentary, they would call it From Underneath the Ring Apron, and we would get all excited because they're saying our podcast. Never mind. I told you, I again lost that battle and I shit the bed. But instead, I just kept quiet. And I was like, here's the link tree. Just follow the link tree, all that stuff. I did that for 2 years. I did that for 2 whole years. I felt like right now was the right time for the rebrand, to do the rebranding one more time of the podcast. So let's try for a third time to rebrand it. Let's try for my third time. My third place podcast. Let's try that one and see how that goes. We've discussed wrestling for so long though, and I basically bringing up other topics than just wrestling. So yes, it was the right time, and that was the reason for it. And why my third place? As I've described it before, Ray Oldenburg, an urban sociologist, called once the first place your home, the second place where you work, and the third place is where you relax, where you encounter familiar faces, or where you spend most of your time getting to know people. So yes, podcasting is where I spend most of my time and getting to know people. I wanted to talk about other topics other than wrestling, and I felt like From Under the Apron was just about that. It was about wrestling. It wouldn't bring me other places, basically. would give it to my friends. Hey, From Under the Apron, come listen to it. We're talking about horror movies. What does horror movies have to do with From Under the Apron? What does Netflix have to do From Under the Apron? Netflix, again. And that that happened. I just couldn't take it anymore. I could, but it just felt like, okay, you know what? Let's rebrand. Let's change it up again. Let's do it for one last time. And I did. So here we are. We're moving right along. We're pivoting. My third place podcast, or M3P pod, on something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. The M3P network. My third place network. If you're a long-time listener, you probably heard this story. But if you're new here, welcome. Welcome in. And let me tell you this. I started off in 2022. I struggled. I clawed my way up to get to this podcast. To get this podcast off the ground with absolutely no help because nobody was willing to help. Shit, I did it myself. Along the way, I told my friends about it. They heard of it, but they weren't wrestling fans. Although they were willing to help, they were willing to distribute it. They were willing to put it out there and say, like, he has a podcast. Go listen to it. It's about wrestling. Sorry. I know it's not your style of podcasting, but hey, you can listen to him. You can support him. Halfway through the year, though, I met other first-time podcasters like myself, and we helped each other out. We pushed each other's podcasts on our socials, but it was only for a limited time, as some of them felt their fans would abandon them and go search somewhere else. I wasn't looking for that. I didn't care that my fans, my listeners would go listen somewhere else. I would encourage it. I encourage that. I was looking for a network of people who were willing to help each other out. Colleagues who were going to hype you up as well on their socials. So I started to ask for trailers of their podcast so that I can insert it in between my episodes during breaks because I know you're going to want to hear more podcasts other than my own. So I thought, let me share with you, my listeners, what I'm listening to as well. And if you don't like me or talking about wrestling, here's something else for you to listen to. Here's true crime. Here's video games. Here's horror movies. I did that. I did that to get everybody of my listeners to listen to other podcasts. And podcasters love that idea. But it didn't stop there. There was a small group who created a Discord page, and we all shared each other's pod, the Linktree, binge and listen on their podcast on another app. Along the way, another group was formed, and it got bigger. It had at least 18 members, 18 podcasters sharing, and it I could barely keep up with it, so I had to abandon it. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. As you can tell, I'm not good with a big group of setting. I'm good with a small setting. I'm good with what I have. But then came podcasters that I got to know outside of our podcast. As I've stated before, you all heard the story. I was on Tumblr Live because it was a thing at the time and wanted to create that community. Along came the pettiness, though. Y'all heard that story. I don't want to tell it anymore because it just seemed whatever. And it's why I named my squad the Fatherless Behavior Squad. It merged everything, and it's not something I would want to brag about again if I wanted to make it a better podcast. So instead, M3P Network, my third place. Ask my friends, my colleagues, the one I got to know outside the podcast, if they need help, and if they do, I can do that. I can help out by sharing their podcast on my socials. Expand. We're going to expand on that. I asked my friend Shenrod, and you heard him, episode 90, the tape distribution era. I asked him if he wanted to be a part of the network, and he said, "Sure, let's do it. Link it up." Um, he doesn't have a podcast, but he has a Twitch link. He has a Twitch page. He gamer. So, you know, he's looking for more followers. And he's a big supporter of mine. He tells his followers, go listen to this podcast from Under the Apron. He tells his followers on Instagram, go check it out. Go check out this blog. He tags me in everything over there. So, why not? I'll put him on my link tree. I'll put him in the network. He's a part of the network now. Go check out his Twitch link on the network link tree. And, we can interact with each other. I'll go to his page soon and he'll come here and hang out and stuff. Because that's what I want it to be. My network of friends. There's going to be more on that in the weeks to come. There's going to be more people, more podcasters. I have a few up there so far. If you want to go check, that's just the startup. If you want to see who is there now, check out the link tree at linktree.com/M3P network. Or you can check it out in the show notes. It's all is good. But I don't think any other podcasts are doing this, at least, not the ones I've been listening to. And I want to expand on this idea. I want to give you a roadmap of what I'm doing in the next 6 months. I wanted to give you a roadmap of what I want to do, of what is coming up. So here's the roadmap. So here it is. This is what I plan on doing. We will no longer be recording on the Podcasters for Spotify app. In fact, the site has sent us messages warning us that soon we will no longer be able to edit or record on the app. It's been telling us, it told us that it's going to end in June. Then it changed to July. It basically took out everything that I don't know. It's a weird app, okay? It's weird. So instead, it'll just be a distribution site. And honestly, I still don't know why I'm using it. I only use it because I want to record on here. And it's working so far. However, it's linking us to another app. One that will help us record, edit, and even post from it in order to get it to Spotify. So pretty soon, you'll be hearing a bunch of your favorite podcasters talk about how they're recording with the Riverside app and how the Riverside app is so cool and all this. So that's going to be me pretty soon. That's going to be us. On top of that, you will be able to go to this app. If you haven't downloaded it, go download it. You will get to see us live. You will get to see us record live. If we send you the link so you can watch us, so you can be guest or you can be an audience, you can use the chat room to talk to us. We will read your messages and we will say it out loud. We will, it'll be like its own community. We will be sending out links. If you are interested, let us know. But we will be recording privately and we will be sending out those links and we will be scheduling our podcast episodes from now on. Another thing, we are currently sitting at 12.k downloads and, listeners. And you all know I want to get to 15k before the end of the year. That's my goal. The goal from last year was 10k. We got it through in January or February. I don't recall. But 15k is the goal for the end of the year. If not, hey, all good. We can make it through January or February, whatever. But that's the goal. So please tell your friends about the podcast. Let them know what we're talking about, the topics, other than wrestling, Cobra Kai, horror movies, all that stuff. And since we're on the subject of the topic, I'm still going to be talking about wrestling, obviously, but let's change it up a bit. Last year, I did an episode about music and how it affects us. It changes our lives. blah blah, all that stuff, whatever. The co-host was awesome, but I still want to talk about music as well with other people. I still want to talk about horror movies, TV shows, movies, video games, comic books, including mental health. And with the rebrand, we can include all of that. We can include whatever we want, anything we want to talk about, all of it. In the past month alone, because of this new direction we're heading, our podcast is heading, I have been receiving emails due to the content of the show. I've read those emails, as you can tell. I've read those messages. I've interacted with people. I've gone all over the socials. We're done everything. One of my co-hosts, Brandy, uh, y'all heard her on the Cobra Kai episode. We've started doing that. We've enjoyed it, and the newest and last season is coming up. It doesn't necessarily mean we're just going to talk about Cobra Kai or the Karate Kid and then be done with it after. There are more shows and movies we both like. Uh, we will have to look into what else she wants to talk about after Cobra Kai and Karate Kid. Same with Menace and our newest wrestling analyst, Greg. That's my brother. So, I have to get my brother involved. I have to get my brother in here. Because he's a fucking amazing person. He's fucking awesome. That's my boy. Menace, we all know Menace. We love Menace. She's our homie. She's our best friend. These are friends of the podcast. I want more friends of the podcast. And there will likely be more guests, more friends of the podcast on the show, because there are more content out there from writers who want to publish their own books, because I've talked to them already. I should have recorded that conversation that I had with one of them earlier in the week. There's another writer, publisher that has had his book out for like a few months or a year now, and I used to work with him back 10 years ago, and I just kept looking at it like missed opportunity. This was a missed opportunity because all I had was From Under the Apron, and what does From Under the Apron have to do with this book? Absolutely nothing. So this is why I wanted to do M3P Network, my third place pod, because I wanted to include book publishers, people that I know, musicians, even professional wrestlers working on the indie scene. Doesn't matter. Our friend Becca, who was on episode 136 earlier this year, in the beginning of the year, we talked about her side hustle being OnlyFans at the time. At the time, because it's no longer a subject anymore. I can include that in other episodes as well. It doesn't matter what the content is. If I know you and we are friends, then we are going to have a little chat on this show. All right? So in conclusion, our roadmap for next 6 months, the M3P network. Geez, I'm already getting sidetracked. I don't even know. I'm stuttering. I apologize. I'm nervous about this. I wanted to get this out there tonight. So here it is. The M3P network. There will be more people involved. Making my duty to repost their podcast and Twitch streams. Doesn't matter who you are. If I repost your stuff, I'm going to have a talk with you. More Cobra Kai related episodes. There's more to come, including episodes related to Karate Kid movies. Possibly after that, we'll talk more about TV shows that we used to love. This past episode, we started talking about the Garbage Pail Kids. Another. You'll hear more about that, but gosh darn it, damn it, god damn it. I'm sorry for cussing, but yeah, the Pail Kids it was an interesting thing. So more on that in the episodes to come. More wrestling episodes. As of now, I'm focusing on the big premium live events: Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and anything in between that comes along that is newsworthy in wrestling. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to take a look at what happens. I'm gonna have Menace. I'm gonna have Greg. I might have Becca again. Who knows? We'll have to see. Music episodes. I will be taking a podcast tour, basically. I will be going to all these other podcasts. I will be having my own chat with them. One of them, they want to do an episode about music. Let's go. We're going to do that. I'll basically, you're going to have to find out on that one. And more of that in the near future, because it's going to be great. They're my favorite. My favorite people talking about music, and me. Me, my favorite people talking about music. All is good. The shoutouts that I do at the end of every episode, that's going to continue because those are part of my network. You can join the party at tiktok.com/evolution of a geek, or you can join it on the Riverside app. It's going to happen. The shoutouts will continue to happen. Everybody that's been hanging out with us in the live, in the chat, during the podcast, y'all are gonna get shouted out because you came to see us talking, you came to see us, and we appreciate that. And finally, last thing before I go, I want to create a Discord for the network and for the listeners of the show. It will be my first time using the Discord for myself, for its own show, for its own thing. And I've been to other Discord, I don't know, pages, I don't know what it's called. So, it's this is my first time getting to know it. It will be for us podcasters, but the listeners will get to be a part of it and hang out with their favorite podcast and or listen to new podcasts that are part of that network. So you'll get to bounce around and listen to other podcasters, describe their situation and all that stuff. The Discord will be coming soon and will probably be done towards the end of the year. I still have more things to talk about. I still have more things to go. But that will be the end goal of this year. Yeah, that's it. That's it for the 6-month mark, for the whatever needed to be said. And that's it for our roadmap. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. Join us next week for more awesome episodes here on the M3P pod, on the newly formed M3P network. Thank you for supporting, listening to the podcast. Join the TikTok live if you are part of my third place community. Tell your friends. I'm Evo, and I love your faces. Let's go. Wow, I can't believe I got this done.